Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this big bad behemoth is an Alienware Area 51. Before we take a look at it properly, I want to quickly address my previous Titan Black video. Some of you said the card seemed to perform quite bad, and I agree. I've also noticed some heat issues since the video, so I'll be buying another to compare the results. Just thought I'd throw that in there because it's been on my mind, and I guess ending up with a GPU that doesn't seem to work as it should isn't totally avoidable when buying from the used market. Nonetheless, let's not dwell on the past, even though sitting in front of the camera is truly an ancient example of a PC. You may think I'm getting a little obsessed with Alienware, but hey, a deal's a deal regardless of the brand. I paid just £40 for this on eBay, which is a good price regardless of specs, because these super plasticky and over-the-top Alienware cases still sell for ridiculous amounts just on their own. They're something of a collector's item. That's just as well because I have no idea what the specs are. You can see from the description though, it isn't without its issues, and having just picked it up the night before recording this video, I haven't even checked to see if it powers up. It took me 7 hours just to get it from the car to the garden. Seriously though, this system is possibly the heaviest thing I have ever lifted. Have you ever helped someone move house and in the process help them lift up a washing machine? Yeah, it's a bit like that. It's also large enough to have its own postcode. But enough banter, let's crack it open and check out the yet undiscovered specs. You can see here that opening it up reveals a ton of cables which all sit within a very standard looking ATX enclosure under all this additional plastic. Before going any further, I'm going to make sure all these cables are connected up as they should be and tidy everything up a little bit. You'd be surprised at how many times a quick check and reseating of cables has revived some of my dead computers. A fix really is that simple sometimes. Fast forward an hour or so and as you can see we've got this thing looking pretty tidy. So let's investigate the specs. It may be old but there could be potential to upgrade and sell this thing for a tidy profit. One of the main reasons I snapped it up so quick. Bear in mind that I used about £10 worth of diesel to go and pick this up. Sellers typically don't post these old Alienwares because of the weight, but if you're willing to, then you can reach a much wider audience online and increase chances of profit. But let's talk about the specification-based discoveries I made when tinkering around inside this beast. It's far from clean as you can probably still see, but I'll give it a thorough wash when I figured out exactly what to do with it, because if I'm honest, it's a little older than I had first thought. The first thing to take note of is the graphics card. It's AGP based, which should give you an idea of just how old this machine is. This was the previous owner's main concern, as they assumed this was why the PC was having trouble booting. After researching the specs, it seems as though this is a 512MB GDDR3 graphics card, but one that won't be able to run any of today's modern games due to DirectX limitations. That factor also depends on the CPU, which we'll figure out later. We've also got a Sound Blaster Audio G2 in here. Forgive me if that's pronounced horribly wrong. Sound cards are definitely a rather outdated component these days, and it's unlikely you'll find one in any modern pre-built. Still, it may fetch a few pounds on the used market. Furthermore, I was pleased to see that the motherboard in this machine seems to be of a standard ATX form factor, meaning we can swap it out for a board of our choice, and not have to worry about whether it fits inside. It seems a modern day upgrade will be ideal, as I'm certain this is a socket 478 board, which supports up to a Pentium 4 hyper-threaded processor at best. Not ideal for modern gaming at all, especially considering the 32-bit architecture. That said, let's continue our voyage of technological discovery and see what RAM we have. I only removed one stick of DDR, and considering it's 1GB, I'd have to assume at this point we've got the maximum supported for this board installed. I quickly confirmed my speculation. This is an Intel D875PBZ 478 board, one that once retailed for $280 back in 2003. You can imagine the cost of this system altogether. As such, it does support just 4 gigs of DDR. The last component of interest here was the power supply. I'm told it has been recently changed, but it had certain levels of dust on it that only years worth of neglect could achieve. At 420 watts it's certainly enough for this system, but the inclusion of this PCI Express connector seems rather wasted here, as the board itself doesn't have any PCI Express slots, and even if it did, We wouldn't see any performance increase with an upgraded graphics card due to the aforementioned Pentium 4 processor. Speaking of which, let's see what speed Pentium we actually have. To do that, we need to see if this thing powers on. While the eBay description wasn't clear as to whether it worked or not, the seller told me when I got there that he thought it needed a new GPU to work, but his wife made him get rid of the whole system before he had a chance to test this out. To my surprise, a flick of the power switch meant the system booted straight up into the BIOS, and as we were lacking a hard drive, it certainly wasn't going to boot to an operating system. Never mind, because I do have more than a few spares. There was a time when testing this as a Windows XP retro machine would have been enough for me, but I've seen and tested far too many of those now. Back in its day, this would have been top of its class in performance and would have had a big price tag to reflect that. Probably around $2 to $3 grand, because, you know, it's Alienware. Here's one I found with slightly lesser specs to get an idea of what the price may actually have been like. Now, because of the CPU's 32-bit limitations, I decided to just check out the performance of the graphics card today, considering this was probably the stronger component. How good would this be in running some more up-to-date games? Well, as up-to-date as we could get, considering the age of the card and the API limitations. Hey guys, Mr. Speak Too Soon once again here, and unfortunately we've run into a little bit of a problem with the old Alienware desktop. Now, we were able to get a couple of game tests in, however we had a little bit of an issue. In fact, couple was probably the wrong word to use. I was able to test Max Payne 2 on this system, which of course ran fine. This is one of those games that will run on anything, including most potato-based products out there. I am joking, of course, but seriously, Max Payne 1 and 2 are very easy to run, even on old systems. I believe this game came out in 2003. I have no way of recording the frame rates exactly here, but as you can see, it ran pretty well with a mix of settings, even on this 32-bit Pentium 4 and the X1950, which is significantly stronger than the CPU. Basically, the bottleneck here would be with the processor holding this Radeon card back, which I think was obviously added to the system at a later date as a replacement to what probably was the original FX 5900. I'm not entirely sure, I can't find the exact spec sheet. But anyway, Max Payne here ran fine, but it was hardly a strenuous game and didn't exactly push our system to any limits. However, when I decided to try and do so, that's when the problems arose. When I fired up a couple of games to test, it seems this is where the issue lies. Now, this wasn't mentioned in the description, nor was I told this last night when I picked up the PC, but as soon as I tried to fire up any program or application under Windows XP, the system sort of went into this eternal boot loop. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the issue is there. It seems like a graphics card problem, if I'm being totally honest, but I don't have any AGP graphics cards or any more AGP graphics cards to actually test out the system with something different, which is a little bit of a shame. I did have an AGP card in my collection a while ago, but I did sell that along with a few other older cards a while back, so that is a little bit of a problem as far as testing is concerned. And that just begs the question then, what are we going to do with this system? Should I restore it into something working that's based on older architecture and hopefully try and turn it around for a profit, or should I totally remove all of the current components in the system and try and turn it into something modern that retains that sort of older Alienware look? I'm totally undecided as to what to do here. I'm going to put it down to you guys, so leave a comment down below what you'd like to see happen to this machine. The comment with the most, let's say, upvotes, most thumbs up, will win, and that's what I'll do with this system. I don't want any silly suggestions like put it in a skip or throw it off of Beachy Head. I don't want silly things like that. I just want to know what I should do with this PC, with this Alienware, because I really have no idea as of current what to do with it. I'd like to turn it into something a bit more powerful, but if you guys would like to see it retain its old school Windows XP charm and sort of bring a little life into my Office XP style, then go ahead and suggest that down below. As for this video though, well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed this look back inside an old Alienware desktop that would have retailed once between $2,000 and $3,000 US. I do hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Leave a like on it down below. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And of course, let me know what you'd like to see happen to this PC down below, because I'm open to almost any suggestions apart from dumping it, as I'm sure some of you will suggest regardless. So as always, thank you, and I'll see you all in the next one.